Are you ready for another wave of freakouts over the president's immigration policy? It should be coming early next week when President Trump says his administration will release a new executive order following up on his previous decree issuing a timeout on travel from 7 Muslim nations. During his news conference yesterday, the president said this.
Let me tell you about the travel ban. We had a very smooth rollout of the travel ban, but we had a bad court. We got a bad decision. We had a court that's been overturned, again, may be wrong, but I think it's 80% of the time, a lot. We had a bad decision. We're going to keep going with that decision. We're going to put in a new executive order next week sometime, but we had a bad decision.
Obviously, we'll let you know the moment that order drops so we can cue the outrage. Speaking of arrivals from Muslim countries, perhaps no nation on earth is more committed to accepting foreign migrants and refugees than Sweden. 2016 alone, the country accepted more than 160,000 asylum seekers, despite having a population of less than 10 million people. Only 500 of these migrants were able to get jobs in Sweden. But if these arrivals aren't able to work, they're at least able to commit crimes, quite a few of them, in fact. Ami Horowitz is a filmmaker. He went to Sweden to chronicle its refugee experience. Here's a short clip of what he found.
Do you see the violence really spreading across Sweden into the cities?
At least 1 or 2 times a week.
And let's say 5 years ago, how often would you say it was?
No, 3 times a year.
Really? The increase in this kind of crime is exponential.
I think we caught off guard. We didn't expect it to be so much increase.
Tucker spoke with the filmmaker earlier this week.
Thanks a lot for coming on. So before you describe what you saw there, give us the overview. What is the justification within Sweden for importing this many migrants from other countries? Why are they doing it?
Well, in Sweden's own words, they consider themselves to be a humanitarian superpower, probably the only superpower that they would qualify for. So they feel that it's their moral duty to open their borders to all and any refugees that want to come to them.
So you've recently spent time there. Tell me if I'm overstating this. I don't think many people in Sweden think this is working well. Is that fair to say?
No, it's not fair to say, actually. In fact, most people that you ask about the refugee crisis, they will say, because the reason why I did the whole thing to begin with, taking a step back, was that there was an absolute surge in both gun violence and rape in Sweden once they began this open door policy. So they know that this crime is happening. They can feel it. The statistics are clear. But they would refer to what is the root cause behind it and say, oh, it's just more, it happens to be more violence. It's men who are raping people, not the refugees. They'll make excuses for it. The majority of the population in Sweden still want to have an open door policy. It's confounding.
Huh, that's remarkable. Now, the statistics on the crime rise that you just referred to, there have been reports in the American press that those statistics are either closely held by the Swedish authorities or they've been manipulated by the Swedish authorities to downplay the role of migrants in those crimes. Is that true?
Well, it depends. The crime statistics are the crime statistics, and they're not closely held. They're open to the public, and they do show this incredible surge of violence. What may actually be the problem is that they oftentimes try to cover up some of these crimes. That, for example, there's been a rash of these rapes, these music festivals, and what happens is they cover up as far as they could who the perpetrators were or if actually rapes had actually occurred. Now, obviously, when you have so many people witnessing these rapes, they're difficult to do, and they've come out to the public. But I think that's kind of what they're referring to, that the government has gone out of its way to try to cover up some of these problems.
That is grotesque. So to the job numbers, we had in the intro something like 160,000 asylum seekers, only 500 wound up working in Sweden. That leaves a lot of unemployed people. What are they doing and how are they living?
Oh, they live great, Tucker. I mean, it's one of the most generous, financial programs that they have in terms of the amount of money they're giving to them, the housing benefits they get, the education benefits they get, the cash benefits they get. So they have these, and what they really become are no-go zones. These are areas that cops won't even enter because it's too dangerous for them. This is the policy of the National Police Authority in Sweden. So they live in these enclaves, which, by the way, are lovely. They're leafy neighborhoods. They're beautiful apartments. And they are sitting around. You're right. It's difficult to get jobs. There's too many of them. But they have tremendous benefits there, which is why so many of these migrants are going to Sweden to begin with.
Now, we know that the masochism of the West really knows no bounds at all. So I believe you when you say that it's not often people say out loud I'm dissatisfied with this arrangement. I know Swedes, though, who at least in private will say this is a disaster. What's the social sanction for saying that out loud? Can you just say, you know, this isn't working, or do people come down on you for saying something like that?
Oh, you can say it, but you're a racist. You're a xenophobe, right? You're Islamophobe. When I was out there, I remember I was at this kind of swanky party in Stockholm, and I started discussing what I was doing there, and the entire party kind of gathered around me and started yelling at me that all those things. I'm a xenophobe. I'm a racist. I'm anti-Islamic. Even though the statistics were clear about who's the perpetrators, it doesn't make a difference. It's very socially unacceptable to make these kind of claims.
Right, because the most important thing is to feel virtuous, I guess. Ami Horowitz, that's amazing. One last question, I can't resist. What's the long game here? How is this going to look 10 or 15 years from now? Does it seem like assimilation is taking place?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, we don't have to actually prognosticate on what the long game is. You can look at France and Belgium, because they've been doing it for that period of time, for longer. And you can see the social unrest that's going on there, the terrorism that's happening there. Sweden, this is a relatively new policy, phenomenon for them. And by the way, Sweden had its first terrorist Islamic attack not that long ago. So they're now getting the taste of what we've been seeing across Europe already.
Sad. Thanks a lot for joining us. Ami Horowitz. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tucker.